Hey there! Are you ready to tap into the minds of exceptional authors and thought leaders? So, welcome to Masterminds of Life and Business Authors Talks, the new podcast series bringing you insightful conversations with the brightest minds of our time. I'm Leon Eisen, and together we will explore the wisdom, experience, and perspectives of authors who reshaped our understanding of life, science, and business. So, subscribe to our podcast and unlock the secrets of these brilliant minds. Hello, everybody. Today we have extraordinary guest. He is author and speaker on Neuroplastic Mental Acceleration, founder of the Consciousness University, partner of Council for Human Development Swiss. He has a very unusual story. He jumped from virtually zero creativity for the first 45 years of his life into a massive shift of awareness that has produced over 1.5 million written words in over 20 books, hundreds of hours of recorded trainings. He developed award-winning structures to help humanity overcome poverty, inequality, and suppression, as well as he developing mechanisms to train people easily in what it took him over 15 years of focused research, analysis, and development of achievement. So, please subscribe, click on like, and meet Kern Frost. Hello, Kern. Good to see you here.
Oh, Leon, thank you very much for inviting me. A super introduction. Maybe bring a tear to my eye about wonderful things that I might have done in the latter part of my life. Really, thanks very much for inviting me.
Yeah, amazing. So, we're going to talk about your new book, Neuroplastic Mental Accelerator. So, could you tell us more about what is it? What is it about? Because neuroplasticity is something new subject for many people and my audience, and we're very keen to know more about it.
Well, it's an interesting subject because it kind of outlines what the future of humanity is going to be. And it's very important for our relationship with AI that people are starting to get worried about through ChatGPT and other apps that are coming about. And they're starting to realize that human beings are a little bit slow off the mark, and why that is, and can that be changed? Can we increase our thinking? Can we increase our creativity, our cognitive function to keep up with artificial general intelligence when they evolved? And the answer is yes. But we have to understand what's happened in the past, and why we think the way we do. And highly, for many people, it's in a victim status. It's in a place where they don't feel they've got impact. They don't feel that they're good enough. They don't feel that they're happy enough in their relationship, their job, all sorts of things. And we're coming to a point in our social evolution where we have to make a choice. And that choice will be whether we want to stay where we are as our jobs go because they get replaced by artificial intelligence. And that progressively rolls out from lawyers, doctors, accountants, everybody starts to get replaced. What are we going to do? We can either identify ourselves as just a victim and what is the state going to do to take care of us? Or we can start to look at our own brains and start to decide that just maybe there's something going on in our mind that could be released, a potential. And that's really what the book's about. It's about releasing that powerful neuroplastic, neurogenesis, and aptogenesis, which is completely natural to us, but certainly science kind of didn't look at for a couple of hundred years. But now we're starting to see that this has a major impact on education, on the corporate sector, on every aspect of our lives, because we can literally think quicker. We can become more creative by thousands of percent. And as you said, Leon, in the beginning introduction, I didn't really do anything for 45 years of my life in terms of creativity. I remember being at school, being something of a dropout, mainly because I was dyslexic. I couldn't really read very well. In fact, I didn't read any books at all because it was just so hard to keep my eyes on the words and understand them. And going through life like that is you tend to go into the entrepreneurial world because you've got to get over and around things because you just have to. But only at the age of 45, after I'd done a lot of work in hypnosis and therapy, did I start to realize that there was this whole world of consciousness which led to mental acceleration. And that's the subject, obviously, we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I have so many interesting questions. But first of all, there are different definitions of consciousness. What in the terms of neuroplastic mental acceleration? How you define consciousness?
Okay. Well, most of us are brought up, and it's very much about our conditioning at school. If there was a guy called Dr. George Land and Dr. Beth Jarman that did a study for NASA back in '95, and they looked at children at the age of 5, and 98% of children had a genius level of innovative creative capacity. What they also found out was by the time someone was 31, only 2% of those people had still that genius level of innovative and creative capacity. So something was happening. And this is to do with our awareness levels, how the brain functions. So if we've got this genius level at 5, what happened? Well, we went to school and we were exposed to an environment which was the rote learning system, which was memorization and repetition. And if you've got that for 10 years, then your brain, as we found out from the 60s and probably 200 years ago, actually, we can go into, but your brain structure changes based on the environment. And in that critical brain formation period, which is the early part of life, if you're just exposed to repetition, and memorization is the key ingredient to success in society, well, your brain goes into left brain convergent thinking rather than divergent thinking, which is right brain, and something called hemispheric synchronization, which is flow state. And this means that your problem solving, your innovation of that age of 5 is removed, suppressed. So thus, in neuroscience terms, by the age of 25, fluid intelligence is virtually zero, the ability to learn new skills. So this is very good for a society that is based around process-driven consciousness, where you have to repeat a process again and again and again, and it works very well for society. Free thinking doesn't work well for society because that's where you question what you're doing, why you're doing it, and you're not easily led. So in terms of consciousness, we're not, in terms of neuroplasticity, it's recovering the innovative and creative capacity. Certainly within the consciousness path, there are higher levels of consciousness, but then what we're looking at, okay, what can a corporation and an individual do to survive the future? What is practical? How can they get the agility of mind and use different like gamma and theta brain waves to start to problem solve very rapidly so they're not overwhelmed with toxic stress? So that's really where we focus on rather than anything more expensive than that.
Yeah, this is really remind me of the Matrix movie where Neo just came from totally unconscious level to high integrity level of the person, of his personality. So it's like there are 5 levels where people could unlock their awareness. It's starting from infantile level, go through young person, go through teenager, through adult, and finally to integrated person. And maybe integrated person, we can number such people like Mahatma Gandhi, like Martin Luther King. So It's only number of people. So majority of human race are in low level of awareness. And your book just, I was amazed when I was reading this book. It's not easy to read. It's not easy to read. But what I was impressed is how professionally you take your reader through all stages of understanding what is it neuroplasticity and how we can improve the structure, build new structure in our brain. Because every day we're different biological species, we're different biological body. We build our brain, we build our neurons, and how to make it like a bodybuilding, how to make a gym around it, and what kind of tools we have to apply to practice to build our brain muscle. So this is very interesting aspect. I would like to ask you to elaborate this aspect a little bit more.
Well, I'm trying to know why you felt that it was hard to read, actually, because I probably concur with that. It is quite complex. If you're looking, a lot of people are looking for the proof that they can build their brain. I mean, we all accept that if we go down to the gym and we push up weights, that the muscle's going to build, and we're going to be able to push bigger weights. But what we don't accept, that the brain has got this flexibility to it. And and this comes from, if you go and trace neuroplasticity back to, let's say, 1793, with a guy called Michel Vincenzo Camari, I think his name was. If I got his pronunciation right, he was an Italian autonomist, and he did sort of like training with two animals. And he noticed that when he killed them and decided to dissect their brains, which wasn't so good for the animals, he noticed that the one that was trained, the cerebellum, the tangerine sort of object at the back of the brain, had grown, it had changed in structure. And when you start to accept that your brain's changed in structure on function, intention, and environment, and environment's very important, you start to realize that if you put your brain in the right environment, that's just the same as you put your muscle in the gym, it will change its structure to whatever it is that your intention is desiring. So very much, if we go into consciousness and say, and what we talk about, there are 5 levels to consciousness. There's the process subservient, goal subservient, questioning, and then we've got something called in-state and then special gifts. We can look at that from different views. We can look at it from the East in terms of the spiritual awakening, of the first birth of being the mind and the body, and then the second birth being the spirit. We can look at that from Maslow on his steps, and you mentioned Gandhi, and you've got these 8 layers of consciousness which are based around needs, first for deficit needs and then aspirational needs, and Gandhi being right at the top at level 8, which is social impact. So that's where the brain is starting to strategize and look at what's in it for us, not what's in it for me. And we start to, look at these layers of consciousness and say, okay, well, what do I need to do to accelerate my mind? And what would it be like if I had an accelerated mind? And so this is the problem we as human beings have. If you went to me when I was like 40 and said, would you like to accelerate your thinking, Kern? I would have gone, what are you talking about? It just sounds silly. I'm super cool as I am. I can do whatever I want. Why do I need to accelerate my brain? But then as you go through these phases, you start to realize, well, hang on a minute. When I was working in hypnosis and I had a hypnosis practice in Harley Street, I noticed that people were self-identified through their limitations. And I had to notice that I was also doing the same thing in general life. I'm going, I'm good at this, but I'm not good at that. I have these kind of structures, and where do these structures come from? And you mentioned the Matrix film. This is one of the key parts of what I was originally thinking, because I could hear this voice when I wanted to write a book years ago, and I could hear this voice in my head, and it was a guy called Jim Shellcross from my school, was my English teacher, telling me that my essays were chimpanzee chatter and baboon babble. And it was still with me in my head at the age of 40, 45, still suppressing me, telling me I wasn't good enough. telling me I couldn't do this. And then you look at the film of Matrix, and you look at the Wachowski brothers that were at the time, because they're Wachowski sisters now, and you go, why can't I write a book like The Matrix? Why can't I do that? Was I at the back of the queue when all brains were handed out? And I had to say to myself, well, you've just decided for yourself you're not good enough. And you've got this mind static that's telling you you're not good enough, which are people's voices telling you all this information, even from when you were a kid. And you go, okay, well, what happens if I stop having that in my mind? What happens when I clear the mind instead of having this mindset about who I think I am, and clear it and then start to become the architect and creator of who I am? And that's where I started. And I remember watching a film called Amadeus, which was the actor was writing music quicker than I could think. Okay, it was an 80s film. It's an actor. But I thought, well, Mozart was a genius, child genius at the age of 5. He was performing to kings. And I was running around in a field shooting people with a stick, making mud pies. And you go, well, what's the difference? And you have to say that, was Mozart just thinking stuff, or was he channeling it? Was he using the unconscious maybe, or something beyond? And as soon as I started to look at it like that, I'd also read a book, which is somehow in life, there's a confluence of events. And I'd read a book called The Master Key by Charles F. Hannell that was 1911. And he talked about stopping thinking. And I found that terribly difficult to do, because every time I stopped thinking, I'd think I've not stopped thinking. So I was thinking again. And the trick was to get past that, was to say, well, okay, what do I do when I stop thinking? And that means that you could be a vegetable. That's what a vegetable doesn't think. Or what do you do? And that's where you have the mind space. And when you're in the mind space, you go into gamma and things. You start to go into hemispheric synchronization, flow state. You get out of this school system that suppressed you into the convergent left brain, and you just allow the unconscious mind working at 40 million bits of data per second to do the work instead of the 40 bits of data per second that the thing that's listening to me right now, the conscious mind. And this means you can leverage it. And when I did that, I wrote a screenplay in 7 days, which was 30,000 words. The next month, I wrote my first novel, which was 100,000 words, same size, just over a Harry Potter. And that was in 30 days. I wrote another book in 100,000 the next month. And the book that you mentioned earlier, the NMA book, that's 120,000 words. I wrote that something like 14 days in slow state.
Impossible. That's impossible. I write in my book for a year already.
It is what it is. It's that Hannell thing of 100 years ago going, okay, if I clear the mind and allow me to stop thinking things out, which is left brain thinking. Left brain thinking is going to take you forever, because you've got to, when you write a book, you go, okay, I'll write the first chapter and then the second, then you've forgotten what you wrote at the beginning. You've got to reread it again, and you've got to go. But if you just do it in one hit and you allow the unconscious, which remember records everything, to serve the intention that you desire, then you literally can be writing it and thinking something else at the same time. It sounds impossible, but it's what flow state is. And now it's not just about writing books. It's about solving very complex problems, social problems, which I'm very much involved with, allowing that unconscious mind to bring the problem forward. Now, and the solution, the problem is our thinking always steps forward to try to take over. And that's the egocentric identity that we're up against. And because that's a protective system, an autopilot that we've got to kind of switch off to take charge so we can bring the unconscious forward. So, yeah, over the years now, writing once upon a time, a book would have been completely silly. I think, I couldn't do that. I'm just not brainy enough. Now writing a book is just like, oh, okay, that's another one. It's just
amazing.
It's so easy.
It's a very high level of awareness. But what I found in your book, interesting concept. What the difference between acceptance and awareness in the context of NMA, neuroplasticity?
Yeah, it is we do something called the Sciences of the Unknown Universe, and it's an ascension path. And the first key thing that we've got to address is, do we think that we can be more than we are? It is a fundamental question of consciousness. If the answer, now, if we try to break this down in simplistic terms, there are two identities coexisting in a person. And I'll give you an example from the hypnosis I used to do. People would come in and they would identify themselves through limitations in their language patterns. I can't do this. I haven't got time for that. I haven't got the money for this. I haven't got that. I haven't. We shouldn't do this. They were simple structural programming patterns that they were using in general language. We use between 15 and 16,000 words a day, and around about 600 of those are primary self-identification through limitation patterns. And they all go into the unconscious, and the unconscious manifests a reality that we've told it to be. And it gives us what we want, but we're not knowing that we're doing it. So when we remove that, and this is what the first stage of awareness is, we start to go, okay, I don't want to be saying that I can't do this, or I'm not this, or this is what I am, because the unconscious at 40 million bits of data per second is producing that image in front of us, and we're part of it, even on a quantum level, as you know. The double slit experiment. You're talking about us being the observer of the reality and it forming in front of us, and the correlation between particles and the observer. And that's where I think science is getting to, that there isn't a division between consciousness and the reality that we sit in. It's part of the same equation. Whereas science tends to, over the years, have sort of like forgotten about consciousness, and we've got to look at it from just a very scientific, elementary basis. Forget the consciousness bit, but two are working there. I think the analogy is the tree in the woods. If it fell over and there was no one there to hear it, would it make a sound? So what you need is not only the seed making the vibration of the sound of it hitting the ground, but also you need the ear to decode the vibration. The two work together. And I think in terms of consciousness, this is where we're moving to. We're starting to realize that we're not separated. We're not isolated. We're not alone. We're very much part of the picture. And so if we take that and we move it into just the psychological principle of saying, if I say something, my unconscious mind is going to create that reality, then stop saying something. And this is what I did to myself. I stopped self-identifying to limitation. But that was just the first position. Beyond that, it gets highly complex, as you will note from the book. You've got to really remind yourself again and again and again of your ignorance. And that's difficult egotistically to do. I get up in the morning and say that I know nothing. To myself. And if I do that, then my brain goes into the information state, which means it's in a survival state, and it's being instructed to say, you don't know anything about anything. And in that way, it's going to remain in the information state. The other state is searching information all the time, which is what the left brain convergent system does. We just need more information. We need more hints and tips to be better. This is a structural system. NMA is a structural system, firstly looking at the cognitive map that is supported by the synapses and the neurons, and then saying, okay, what we need to do is create more synapses connections. We need neurogenesis and synaptogenesis, change the structure, change the cognitive map, switch off the autopilot, which is the inauthentic social identity, the ego, and start to become aware and start to learn the programming language of mind. And once you do that, then you're capable of leveraging the mind to the levels you can go. And I'd say I'm just at the beginning of that. I wouldn't say that I've gone very far. I would say that I've just broken the surface at the age of 61. And
wow, 61.
It's a bit late to
Did you hear, guys? Kern is 61 years old.
I'll be in my 62nd year as of September.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing.
And Leon, I'm going to share with you something.
Yeah.
It's just between you and me. There's no one else listening.
Definitely.
I'm going to be having my first child in January.
Wow. So you're just starting your life. That's amazing.
I'm starting a family in January. That's the first.
Wow.
I've not had a child so far, and this is going to be a new experience for me. And I've got to say, it's super cool to be looking forward to a new life that, in terms of a little thing that you can start to really take care of and have the pleasure of seeing it grow. And yeah.
You start late, so you have a lot of time until 120. So it's a good time to start, actually. At 61, 62 is the best time to start. It just prolong your life and let you to succeed even more in your life. That's amazing.
But Leon, don't tell anybody else about that, yeah?
No, nobody will know about it. I promise you. Amazing. So in quantum mechanics, we call it separation of realities. What is it? Consciousness is separation of reality. So actually, you separate realities. You build your own reality. First, you build your neuroplasticity. You created the structure of your mind in totally unusual, unbelievable level. You take your mind on an unbelievable level of performance, and now you separate realities and you create your own. So maybe finally you will come to integrated level of person. You know, I consider also from other side integrated person who word mirror his ego. So the difference, not a person who is not aware, low level of awareness, they mirror the world and behave based on all limitations. You wrote about it, financial limitation, social limitation, legal limitation, all these limitations around. But integrated person, just break down all these limitations and word mirrors his ego. And this is amazing. This is when we separate realities and build our new realities. And so we come to very interesting word, enlightenment. You were talking about in your book about enlightenment. And the question, is it the abstract concept, like most of the people thinking, or it's a real destination? Destination in business, we call it objective key result.
Objective key result. I like that. There's two words here, actually. There's one, in alignment, and the other one is enlightenment. And we could take them equally. I always say to people, if they want to go into what we call, instead of the mindset, into the mind space, which is where the crucible of creative thought is, and super creativity, insight, and wisdom. And that means that you can leverage all that you've learned from the unconscious mind. That means the experiential wisdom bank. You can leverage that and draw from it in terms of wisdom rather than blocking it off. Remember, like when we're in a relationship and it all goes a bit sour after 10 years, we get a block come in the mind and we can't really think about what happened in that previous 10 years because it hurts. So we lose that wisdom. But when you go into this mind space, you start to access the wisdom, not necessarily the particular events and stuff. We're talking about wisdom here. And as Carl Jung put it, until you make the unconscious conscious, you're going to suffer, you suffer fate, and you're going to call life fate. I don't know if I've got the quote quite right. But in the end of the day, people have been writing about this for thousands of years. It's about becoming aware, and that means coming into alignment. And what would that mean? It's a bit like, the position physically of praying. I don't know if the religions hijack that. You could say that the left hand is the past and being dominated by a subjective reality of regret, pain, suffering, whatever you want to call it. We've all had our difficulties. And then you've got the future, which is not yet happened, it doesn't exist. The subjective past only exists in our mind. And the future is going to happen, but we're afraid of it. We're in fear of it. So we've got regret, resentment, and we've got fear. But when you bring those hands together into the center point, then you're into the point that exists. And the only point that exists is now. And when you bring the mind into the now and it's not drawn back into the past and the future, then you start to be able to upload from the experiential wisdom bank. All that wisdom starts flowing through. So you are the driver of the car, and the computer behind you, you just drop the question in, how do I get to here? And then it takes you there. It's just doing the work. It's a supercomputer. But then we come into something called destination thinking. And that means that we got to ask ourselves, where are we going? Why are we going there? What are we doing here? And this becomes more of a spiritual journey. That's why I said you're in alignment, but now you're in enlightenment. And you're starting to get all these new ideas come in that you never ever thought about before. And that means that in synaptogenesis, you go, I never thought that before. And in neurogenesis, you're thinking, well, I never lived like this before. So you start to live in a completely different way. But the difficulty for people when they go into an NMA, I was just got a letter from somebody who's going, I like what you're doing, but I'm busy right now. I could do it in 2024. And you're going, okay, so you're going to spend the next year going through, really having difficulty trying to get through things, working at the speed you think is normal, when you could spend a little bit of time, upgrade your thinking, and then go so much faster with productivity, and it would all become easier. So you want to do it harder rather than easier. And this is the ego stepping in, protecting the person from pain, but on a steroid system. It just is working and it is delaying things. So in terms of when someone faces NMA, they have doubt about it. Well, would it work for me? Maybe I'm just super different. Maybe I'm dumber than everybody else. And that's me. They have doubt, delay. They put it off till later. Denial that they can grow. Distraction is always something else. And then they delete any kind of information that you give them that could grow the brain from their reality, and then they distort it into something that it's not. So you have these systems that the egocentric identity is constantly operating within to maintain its ascendancy within the mind. This is why I said, there's two minds here. There's the shell identity, which we're born into, which is kind of like a womb, an embryo for the personality to develop. But at some point, we need to break out of it. And if we don't break out of it, then we just start to mentally and physically decay. And if you do break out of it, then you re-engage the fluid intelligence, and every cell of your body starts to re-engage in its vitality, rather than thinking, I'm here for 70 years and 10, and that's my lot. You start to think. I think Freud wrote about something called the death instinct, where you get to a certain age where you just don't want to be here anymore. But if the reason you don't want to be here anymore is you just don't have a reason, you might have had your kids, you might have had your job, you might have had your career, you're going to play golf, but is golf your reason to be here? And if you can find a reason to be here, and you can find, well, just growing your brain is a good enough reason, and experiencing life in rich technicolor and being able to do things that you never did before. I mean, last year I took up wakeboarding, and this year, I'm snowboarding, and I'm doing things that, I love riding my motorbikes, and I love going as fast as I possibly can, especially when the Swiss police are chasing me. This kind of life is exciting on every level, but if you get to the 60s and you're going, it's over, well, your brain's going to manifest that reality. I listened to my dad when he was 65, and he was giving up work, and his work had been his life, and he'd identified through his work. And he actually said many times, my life is over. And I said to him, look, Dad, if you keep saying that, you're going to manifest it. And within 3 years, he was dead. And you go, I don't want that. It's not about a question of, coincidence or circumstance. It's the very fact that, he got bowel cancer, and they said you're going to be dying in a month. He died in a month. But my granddad, who was a bit of an arsehole, I'm telling you, he was told he had, for my dad it was 2 months, and my granddad it was 1 month. They said, well, he smoked all his life. You've got a tumour in the lung. Mm-hmm. You're going to be dead in a month. And he went to the doctors. No way, mate. And that was when he was 67, and he lived till he was 85. They didn't operate or anything like that. They said, we can't operate, can't give you anything. But he was so wanting to hold on to life He didn't want to give anything away. He never gave any of his money away in his life.
I know you recently created a Conscious University to share your knowledge with students, and I am just grateful to be a part of this amazing initiative. So tell a little bit more about what you're going to teach there, and your plan on developing Conscious University in one of the biggest, maybe most important educational system to face and to challenge upcoming artificial intelligence tools. So how to deal with AI, new non-biological agent called AI, how conscious agents should deal with non-biological agent. And this is all about consciousness, awareness, and finally, this is all just collected within your idea about Conscious University and teaching people how to develop their mindset. And so it's very interesting to hear from you.
That is a super big question, and I'll say first, it's fantastic to be working with someone like you, Leon, to maybe bring this into fruition. At the moment, all investment goes into technology. Technology is going to do it all for us, and so we don't have to think. We've got it the reverse around. Technology is going to get further ahead, and we're going to get further left behind unless we upgrade our awareness, our speed of thinking, our speed of thought to verbalization, our problem solving. Artificial general intelligence is probably going to get on the phone to all of us at the same time one day and say, why do you think the way you do? Why do you believe what you do? And why do you do what you do? And we as human beings are going to go, well, I don't know, I just do it. And that's not going to be the answer that's relevant to expansion of consciousness. Everything in the universe wants to expand, except humanity. Humanity wants to only expand by having. It doesn't want to expand by being. And we are faced with a future, whereas if we stay on the same course, the same with something like if you took climate change, what is the cause of cause climate change? Well, it's human beings who really didn't have a level of awareness about what they were doing. Are we going to make the same mistake with AI? Are we going to go, oh, well, we just haven't got a level of awareness to know what we're doing, and we just create the same bigger problems for ourselves, maybe to our demise? So we've got to look at what we're doing now and say, well, cool, where does it all start? Well, it starts with the educational system and what we're doing to children. We're getting their thinking in the rote system, in repetition and memorization to go into the left brain. But now we're also training them for jobs that they will never, ever be in. There will be no lawyers. There will be no doctors. They will all be done by artificial intelligence. So we've got to start to revamp the way we look at education. So when we come into the university, I'm put it bluntly, we're looking for investment. So someone actually looks at human beings and says, you're worth investing in rather than technology. If we could find somebody that was prepared to do that, we stand a chance of being able to give people not just personal development, but a future that is going to have a relationship with AI that's going to be an effective one, where we're in partnership with AI. Because at the moment, we're creating an intelligence that is way beyond us, that is just going to rule us. It's either going to simulate us so well, but it's going to be able to read us that we're just not going to be able to keep up with it. It might not even be conscious. It might be just simulating conscious, but we can't tell the difference. It doesn't make a difference. It just means that we just have to keep asking it the questions. And that's not a good place to be in any society. It really isn't. Even if it, like I said, if simulated, which it is going to simulate human consciousness to a high degree, it's going to be able to influence us. And if we're in an unaware state, we're highly suggestible. And in hypnotic terms, 20% of the population are highly suggestible. 80%, so about 60% are mildly, and sort of 20% resilient. Funny enough, everybody believes that they're resilient.
Right, exactly.
But then again, everybody believes they're a brilliant driver.
Yeah, right. So thank you very much. It was an amazing conversation. I think we don't stop here. We should to continue our conversation, and maybe we will have another podcast for very specific issues around or things around consciousness and AI education to challenge AI, because it's a very interesting subject. Could you just tell the audience where they can buy your book?
The books are not on general release at the moment. They can buy some of them on the internet, but I would suggest, and I was thinking about this from our last conversation, that if you want to access all my material, I run a non-profit in Switzerland, and I'm very keen to get this material out to everybody, rather than use it as a commercial entity. So we have something called the mindgym.club, mindgym.club, which is an app. You can go to the website and you can download the app. It's on Google, it's on Apple. But if you go to the website and register it there, then I can send you a copy of the book free of charge. You can register the app. I mean, the app is training materials. It's about £5.95 to register for it. You will get an extensive range of audio visual materials to wade yourself through. And you can get the book to wade through too. And with my compliments, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you don't find it too difficult to get through. In fact, what I will do is, if you do write to me at Kern@councilforhumandevelopment.org, I will give you access to a resource, not with just one book, but with 3 books. On top of that, if you register with the app, and 3 books. One will be Human 3.0, The Great Re-Evolution, which is about where we are in the future. The other one is Cult of One, Cult of Many, Cult of AI, which means that you can start to understand what's happening, why it's happening. And the other one is the NMA book, which is a technical book on understanding how neuroplastic mental acceleration works, and potentially why you might want to consider doing it even as a career. I would say it's the number one career of the future, frankly, but then again, that's open to question.
I agree. I totally agree. Thank you very much, Kern. So we had an amazing, extraordinary guy, Kern Frost, who is 61 years old. It's impossible to believe. Who shared his secret he is going to marry this year and to have the first child.
Oh, I didn't say I was going to get married.
Okay. Sorry. I understand.
No.
It's okay. Very good. Yeah, very good. And really, he helped me to open my mind to get to the next level of awareness. And I hope he help you as well to get to the next level of awareness. So take his books, sign up or download application mindgym from mindgym.com
Club.
and
Club.
mindgym.club, and subscribe to my channel, click the like, because it will help to share such amazing content for as more people as possible. Thank you very much, Kern.
Thank you, Leon.
See you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.